Let's talk about anxiety. It's a word we all use, right? But for millions of people, it's so much more than just day-to-day worry. It's this overwhelming, sometimes debilitating disorder. So today, we're going to break down what anxiety disorders actually feel like, figure out where that line is between normal stress and a clinical condition, and, most importantly, talk about how they can be managed.
All right, to really get a handle on this, let's start, well, not with a dry definition. Let's start with an experience, one that's at the very heart of these disorders for so many people.
So I want you to imagine this. You're just going about your day, everything's normal, and then, bam, completely out of the blue, you're hit with this incredible surge of intense fear. It peaks within just a few minutes, but man, it feels like an eternity.
It can start with your heart, and I don't just mean beating fast. I mean pounding against your ribs, so hard you can almost feel it in your throat. Then comes this desperate feeling for air. You're gasping, but it's like your lungs just won't work right. It's a terrifying sensation, almost like you're being smothered. On top of that, you might get this tightness in your throat, like it's literally closing up. All of a sudden, even just swallowing feels hard, which only adds to that feeling that you can't breathe. And the world around you, it can start to spin. You might feel super lightheaded, unsteady on your feet, completely convinced you're about to collapse right there. And underneath all of those physical sensations is this profound, gut-wrenching fear. So many people describe it as a complete certainty that they are dying, maybe having a heart attack, or just losing their mind entirely. Now, if any of that sounds even remotely familiar, I want you to know you are so far from alone. But there's a really critical difference between having an intense moment of fear and having an actual anxiety disorder.
And the scale of this, it's just staggering. Studies show that anxiety disorders are going to affect nearly 30% of adults at some point in their lives. That makes them one of the most common mental health conditions anywhere in the world.
So this is where we need to draw a really important line. Look, everybody feels anxious sometimes. It's a totally normal, even protective human emotion. But it crosses over into a disorder when that feeling just won't go away, when it's persistent, excessive, and it starts getting in the way of you living your life. You know, going to work, seeing friends, just functioning day to day.
You know, a really brilliant way to think about this is something called the smoke alarm principle. Think of our natural anxiety response as an internal smoke alarm. It's designed to go off when there's a real fire, right? A genuine danger. But in an anxiety disorder, that alarm gets faulty. It's way too sensitive. It starts blaring at the tiniest puff of smoke, and sometimes for absolutely no reason at all.
And that oversensitive alarm, it doesn't show up in the same way for everyone. It can manifest in a bunch of different forms, which leads to distinct types of anxiety disorders.
Let's just touch on 3 of the most common ones. With generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, that alarm is like a constant, low hum of worry about pretty much everything. With social anxiety disorder, the alarm goes off specifically in social situations. And with panic disorder, the alarm is that sudden, terrifying siren we just talked about, which is often followed by this constant fear of it happening again.
And this distinction is so important when we look at the actual numbers. Get this, over 22% of people will have a panic attack at some point, but a much smaller group, about 3.7%, go on to develop panic disorder. See, the disorder isn't just the attack itself, it's the constant fear and the life-changing avoidance that comes after it.
So to really get panic disorder, you have to understand the vicious cycle that fuels it. And it often starts with a totally normal physical sensation. Maybe your heart just skips a beat after you walk up some stairs. But then, that faulty alarm system kicks in. Your mind misinterprets that totally harmless feeling as a sign of imminent danger. The thought isn't, oh, my heart's beating fast from exercise. The thought is, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack.
And that one catastrophic thought just floods your body with real fear. And guess what that does? It makes the physical symptoms even stronger. Your heart pounds harder, your breathing gets faster, which just confirms your initial fear, and the cycle spirals, turning a tiny little blip into a full-blown panic attack. But here's the thing, understanding that vicious cycle is so important because that is the absolute key to breaking it. And breaking it is completely 100% possible.
If you take one thing away from our chat today, please let it be this. Anxiety disorders are highly treatable. There is a clear path from feeling trapped by fear to actually regaining control of your life. One of the cornerstones of treatment is something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. It's a really practical approach that basically empowers you to become your own therapist. First, you just learn about what's happening in your body and mind. Then, it teaches you how to spot and challenge those catastrophic thoughts as they're happening. And finally, through a really safe and gradual process called exposure, you learn to face the feelings you've been afraid of. This effectively recalibrates your brain's alarm system and proves to yourself that you are in fact safe.
And therapy is often backed up by some really practical lifestyle changes. Things like regular exercise, getting enough sleep, and cutting back on stimulants like caffeine and nicotine. They can make a huge difference in just turning down the overall sensitivity of your body's alarm system.
So if there are such effective treatments available, why do so many people still suffer in silence? Well, a lot of the time, the biggest barrier isn't the condition itself. It's the stigma that surrounds mental health.
And these misconceptions are just so damaging. This belief that anxiety isn't a real illness or that someone should be able to just get over it, it stops people from getting the help they need. It adds this whole layer of shame to what is already a really difficult experience, and it just reinforces this false idea that it's some kind of personal failing instead of what it is, a treatable health condition.
So, what does this all mean? Ultimately, just understanding anxiety, whether you experience it yourself or not, is the first real step towards change. It empowers us to dismantle the stigma, to support the people around us, and to build a world where reaching out for help is seen for what it truly is, a profound act of strength.